I am excited for the podcast today because we have somebody that I feel is on a completely different level. I've known him for about a year and a half, and from what I can see, he's kicking butt at work. He's on the road to 215 and lean. He's a great father, he's a great husband, he's a fellow podcaster. Unfortunately, nobody is perfect. And for Orson, that area is he is a Kansas City Chiefs fan.
Oh
But I
my goodness.
guess I guess this is just one place we're going to have to agree to disagree. But I do want to welcome Orson Wilkins to the Merchandise Show.
Randy, thank you. I really appreciate you even being willing to have me on. I have no idea how you came up with things to actually say about me. That was super incredible. So thank you. I appreciate the introduction. That was awesome.
All right. Was any of that untrue? Is there any of that okay, cool,
All
cool.
of it was perfect. Yeah.
Maybe just give us, Orson, maybe just give us like a 30,000 foot view of like what's going on in your life now, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So, no, great question. As far as what's going on in Orson's life right now, um, I'll kind of start with the three main pillars that I kind of think about in my own life, which is family, fitness, and career. And with the family side of things, my wife and I had our first baby girl on January 3rd of 2024. So she will be one coming up this next month. So that's super exciting. And then when it comes to the fitness side of things, like you said, I'm on the road to 215 and lean, and that has been a journey that is proving to be more complicated than I would want it to be. And I think most people that I've ever tried any sort of serious fitness related goal could probably say the same thing. At least I would think so. And then as far as the career side of things, I still have my own agency as far as helping create content for business owners.
Mm.
But I don't really advertise that much because I want to really try to focus on my main job, which is a marketing director at this company called Simple RFID. And it's an inventory management business. And it sounds super boring, but I am actually finding a lot of fulfillment and excitement working there because it's this it's a business that is really starting to take off in a really big way, and I feel like I have a cool opportunity to really become or be a leader and an instrument in aiding this business to getting to where it possibly could be. And like this could be like we're talking upwards of hundreds of millions of dollars as far as what the potential is there for us to
Wow.
grow to. We just need to capture the market in the correct way. And there's a lot of fun things coming on. If anyone's familiar with Dan Martell and all of his stuff, we've been going deep into his coaching SAS, which is called SAS Academy. So we're getting involved with a lot of people in that, and eventually we're just going to keep investing in ourselves and growing in that aspect, but also utilizing that knowledge that we learned from Dan's group and the people that he surrounds himself with to help build this business. And it's just becoming a really fun environment to be around. Like this year, the business did about like 1.5 million in revenue.
Mm.
And this next year, I think we're hoping to get closer to five. And there's just a lot of fun, exciting changes happening. It's small enough to where it's still kind of a startup vibe. There's really only 10 of us in the office, and we're just changing a lot and having fun along the journey. So that's kind of where my main focus is at. But as far as to answer your question, the 30,000 foot view, that's where I'm at.
Okay. And is that something that you've always seen yourself doing, is working in a marketing role like that?
Honestly, not to this capacity. No. Especially in an inventory management company, never
Mm.
in a million years would I have thought I would be involved in something like that. As far as the marketing side of things, like I first fell in love with videography and stuff when I saw that you could travel and do other fun things like that. And then that took me down the road of getting into weddings and ultimately working with business people. And I really
Mm.
liked the environment of being able to work with these other entrepreneurs and help them build their businesses with the content that I create. And I'm still doing that to a degree with two other clients outside of the simple RFID business, but I think the difference with this company that I'm at now versus doing my own agency is, like, for example, you hear, if any of your listeners listen to Gary Vee and his content, a lot of the stuff he says is like being the number two can be one of the best jobs ever. And I'm finding that
Mm,
that's kind of the role that I'm finding myself in at this other business, to where I'm learning how to build an actual business while getting paid for it. Like, it's not just, I mean, a coaching business is a real thing too, and that's mostly what I help with on the side. Is I have friends that have coaching businesses for real estate agents and stuff.
mm,
But the simple RFID thing, it's a different beast. Like, it's a legitimate, in my head, a legitimate business. And I'm sure, like, the definition of what a legitimate business is, I think that could probably range. But in my head, this is what that definition would be. Did that answer your question?
yeah, yeah.
Perfect.
I guess one of the main reasons why I wanted to have you on the podcast is because um, I've thought a lot or have been thinking a lot about like failure, how to view it, working through some of the own things, my working through some of the things in my own life that I would view as maybe a failure.
Mm-hmm.
And I've just been watching you. I've only known you for like a year and a half. I've always enjoyed our conversations, and I know that things got really, really tough for you and your wife for a while. And to some people, it probably looked like a failure of career, a failure of goals, a failure of lifestyle, even. But recently, with like what I've been seeing on social media, I see like you starting to post some wins. It feels like you're kind of coming out of that season. It really, really feels like you guys are starting to hit a stride. You guys are picking up momentum now. Would you view that tough period as like a period of like a lot of failure, or how exactly would you view that?
I wouldn't use the word failure. I
Do you
mean,
think other people would view it as a failure?
yeah. I mean, I think there are definitely some people that would view it in that regard. I mean, it just depends on how they view the entire world, honestly.
Yeah.
Whether they see it as a abundant place or a scarcity place, right? The abundance or scarcity mindset. And I feel like that would be the difference between if someone's looking at it through the lens of fear versus not.
Mm, yeah. So like how how do you not view that as a failure if like everybody around you, or if there is a few people around you that are viewing that as a failure? How are you not viewing it that way?
So, amazing question. And it's kind of a deeper answer than I think what most might assume. For me, I mean, this is not the first quote unquote failure that I've experienced in my life. And so let me kind of back up just a little bit. And before I was married, before I lived in Utah, which is where I'm at now, um, and kind of backtrack a little bit to where I feel like my first real quote unquote failure was. Because I mean, this is kind of where it really starts for me, as far as not looking as at these experiences as failures, but as learning experiences, like I just said.
Mm,
And it goes back to, so I grew up a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And as you grow up in that church, you're taught to not do a lot of things, such as drink, smoke, have sex before marriage, and a lot of other things like that. And in high school, I did all of those things. I was essentially living a totally separate life from anything my parents knew. They had no idea about anything like that. And then you're also taught growing up to go serve a 2-year mission for the
mm,
church. And I don't have anything against it, but I ended up going on this mission. I left, and I was trying to teach these principles that I was not living in my own life.
mm,
And that ended up being really difficult. So I ended up writing my parents and telling them everything that I had ever done, and essentially telling them like, hey, I'm going to have to come home from this 2-year mission early to work on these things and get to the point to where I am living the principles so I can go back and learn them. And so that was for me like the real first big like failure that I feel like I've had. And I mean, I don't know how many people would really be able to relate to that, but like my parents have always they were always the biggest supporters for anything that I was ever doing, and always the most important people in my life. Like my dad, he taught me the value of hard work, and my mom was always the one to say you can do anything you set your mind to.
Mm.
And so they were really, really important to me, and they never really punished me. They always made me feel guilty for the things that I've done. And knowing that they were not proud of me hurt really, really bad when all that experience happened. And so I ended up coming home, doing the work that I needed to be able to go back out on this mission, which it was over the course of 10 months. But during the course of those 10 months, my mom was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And it was stage 4. And so 6 out of those 10 months she was doing chemo and just slowly deteriorating. And ultimately, she ended up passing away in 2018. I believe that it was back in June of 2018. But the reason why I'm bringing this up was because one thing my mom told me before she passed away, and again, I was viewing this from the perspective of like, I've let you down. Like, I've made all these mistakes. I've had all these failures. Like, I feel so bad. I'm just, I don't want to let you down, kind of thing. And one thing that she told me before she passed away was, Orson, I'm not worried about you.
Mm.
And to hear that when I was doing all the things that they taught me not to do really lit a fire under my ass, for lack of a better term, to be like, when I see you again after this life, I'm not going to be able to look back on my life and say I let you down. I'm going to do everything that I possibly can to fulfill my earthly potential and make an impact on people like you did in your life.
Mm.
And so when those 10 months were over that I was home to do the work to be able to go back out on my mission, I ended up leaving 2 weeks before my mom passed away. So I left to go back out on that mission knowing that I was never going to see her again. And that was the probably one of the hardest things that I've ever done, is to leave knowing that you're never going to see the most important person of your life, and she's never coming back. That was, man, I can feel myself getting choked up a little bit. But that experience was so important for me because that is probably the deepest why that I have, as far as not looking at hard experiences as failures. Because deep down, I mean, I have a lot of other whys too. Now that I have a family and stuff, they're a part of that. But like deep, deep down, that is one of the biggest reasons to why it's like, this is not going to be a failure in my eyes. This is just going to be a stepping stone in the direction of fulfilling my earthly potential. So when I do pass away and I get to see my mother again, I'll be able to say like, I made you proud. There's nothing that I didn't do that was, there's nothing left undone or nothing left unsaid. So I think that hopefully that answers your question, but I feel like that at the core of it for me is really where my mindset really started to shift in viewing hard experiences that others might view as failures as a stepping stone to something greater.
Hmm. Wow. So I had heard parts of that story before, but I hadn't heard the part. So you left, you came back from your mission to
Mm-hmm.
work on some things, but then you
Mm-hmm.
left again while your mom was still alive and you knew that you wouldn't see her again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That would be, that's tough. That's real tough.
Yeah, I can send you a picture of the last photo I had with her before I left, and you can put it on the YouTube for those of you that are watching,
Yeah.
if you want that. But
Yeah. So, um, so when you look at failure now, or things that other people might count as a failure, would you look at that as like a good thing or a bad thing? Because it almost sounds like you would look at a failure or a hard time or things that other people would count as a failure. You're almost looking at it as like a good thing, it sounds like.
yeah, for real. I mean, it's it's definitely a good thing.
Why?
And yeah, so to kind of go back to the difficult season that my wife and I are kind of starting to come out of. And it's kind of ironic because we have a different view of how we see these experiences.
Mm,
She still is holding on to it and she still feels like there's hurt there. And
yeah.
I mean, part of the reason too is because I didn't handle the situation like she wanted me to. Um, and so there's definitely some things that I feel like I could have done better. But part of the reason I'm not looking at it as a failure, and you can point me in the right direction if I'm veering off from your original question, but like if I don't look at it as a win, then that experience has power over me and it causes me to feel pain that I don't want to experience. And when I think about my dream life and the emotions and thoughts that I want to have in that life, they're nothing but excitement, gratitude, and abundance for the life that I'm living. And if I'm constantly holding on to my past failures, I'll keep using that word, then I'm not allowing myself to live as my future self in my current moment. And during that hard time, that was probably the hardest work that I was doing during it all was trying to change my view of the world from someone that never has enough of what he needs or to being someone that always has more than enough for what he needs. And it's kind of ironic, but I mean, and I haven't been down the road long enough to really experience this, but lots and lots of other people have written about this and have talked about it in other shows, but the whole concept of when you don't need it to happen is when it actually happens. And when you can actually start looking at the experience that was so hard for you as the thing that you needed to experience, you're no longer needing something outside of you to feel happy or successful or anything like that. You become happy, you become successful, you become abundant. And so I feel like that's really the biggest key for me, at least, of being able to look at it as a win rather than a loss. Does that does that answer the question, Randy?
Yeah. Um,
Perfect.
you said that your future self, the feelings, the thoughts that you have there is going to be happiness, excitement, things like that. You know, you
Mm-hmm.
don't, you're not going to want to, I guess, be feeling a lot of pain. But pain could be a great motivator, couldn't it?
Yeah, it definitely can be. But for me, I mean, pain is just not the motivator that I want to live my life on. I would rather live my life on gratitude. And don't get me wrong, I mean, there's some times when it's like, luckily I don't have any haters. I mean, maybe I will later on, but I'm sure if I did, I would use some of that as juice to be like, no, I want to prove you wrong and kind of tap into some of that kind of pain. But when I think about the pain that I've experienced in my own life, like the pain of losing my mother, the
Mm.
pain of going through that really difficult financial situation, the that feeling brings up certain thoughts in my mind. And then when those thoughts start to happen again, it brings up more emotions and feelings that are equivalent to those thoughts. And if our thoughts, well, let me ask you this, Randy. Do you believe that our thoughts impact our lives?
Very much so, yes.
So if we're thinking thoughts of pain, then we're feeling feelings of pain, then those feelings are just going to create more of those same thoughts. And if I want to have thoughts of gratitude and abundance, then I'm going to choose to only think of gratitude and abundance. So I
Mm,
can so I can essentially think, I don't like saying this way, but I don't essentially think into existence the kind of life that I want. And so yes, I do think pain is a great motivator, but for me, the more powerful one is gratitude.
yeah. We've kind of been alluding to like this financial situation, kind of like what was going on there, or something, a stage of your life, I would say, that you're coming out of. Would you mind diving into that a little bit and kind of explain like what your situation was, or you don't want to go there?
No, yeah, I can definitely dive into it. So the situation was so it took me a little over 5 years or so to be able to quit a quote unquote dead end job to be able to pursue videography full time, running my own business. And
Mm,
once I did that, I found a job with my mentor to create his own content. And after about a year going down that road, it wasn't in alignment anymore. And well, first, before I keep going with that, while I was working with this guy, we were making the most money we'd ever made. My wife and I were probably making around $8,000 to $10,000 a month.
mm,
And for us, newly married, we just built a brand new house. We don't have like our expenses are maybe 3 grand a month, maybe. And so we felt like we're on top of the world. We're like, holy cow, this is incredible. We have so much money. Like, this is awesome. Like, we felt we were unstoppable. And so while I was working with him, we ended up buying this Mercedes Benz, a GLC 300. So this SUV Mercedes, we ended up buying that. That was almost like $600 a month. But still, again, we were like, oh, what's $600 a month? We're fine. Like,
mm,
we can definitely afford that. And we used that purchase as like oh man, we deserve this type of thing. And we were only 22. Anyways, we're definitely did not deserve it. Spoiler alert, definitely did not. So we're working with him, making these obviously bad financial decisions. And then after a year of working with my mentor, it wasn't in alignment anymore. The business structure had changed. And I ultimately was like, hey, I don't, he was trying to make it work, but I was like, let me just walk away and we'll just
mm.
part ways. We ended up parting ways. Lindsay, my wife, she says, you just got fired. She
Oh.
says I got fired. So you can call it what you want. But I think I was the one that chose to walk away. Anyways, maybe that's just to soften the blow on my heart. But anyways, so to continue with the story, um, going into I believe it was 2023. Yeah, 2023, I was no longer working with him and I was trying my best to do freelance work. I had maybe one client that was about $2,000 a month,
Mm,
but we still had this $600 card payment and we're like, "Hey, this is not really working that out that much." We ended up renting out every single room on our house. We had 3 extra rooms, so we rented out every single one and they were essentially paying our mortgage, which allowed us to keep our lifestyle, but we
mm,
weren't making real financial changes for the better. So we weren't digging ourselves out of we were still digging ourselves into a hole at this point because we didn't make any real changes. And 2023 is going by and halfway through I was like, "You know what? I'm going to go like essentially all in on my own personal brand."
mm,
And I invested in Tom Noski's cohorts, which is essentially where he teaches everybody to do what he's done and build a successful business through your content online. And so my plan was I'm going to start posting consistently and start trying to sell products. And I was doing that for about 9 months. I posted every single day and I was doing really well with it. Wasn't making any money though, wasn't going anywhere. And right around the same time I started to do that is when my wife got pregnant with our now almost 1 year old.
Mm.
And so now this pressure is on as far as, okay, my wife's pregnant. She's going to give birth in 9 months. I have to try to figure this out. So I started trying to do the personal brand even more. But a big mistake that I made is I started neglecting my clients at the time, which were bringing in the income for us. And because of that, I ended up losing them in around October, beginning of November. And so going into the holiday season, I was making no money
Wow.
whatsoever. And when I, one thing that you need to understand too is when I left that dead end job, I told myself I'm never going back. I did it, I'm making this work. And so when I was left with the prospect of I literally have no prospects for work, I'm not making any money. My wife is almost due with our first child. She's still working, mind you. We're somehow barely able to pay the mortgage. We're having to eat dinner at my in-laws every single night because we couldn't afford groceries. We honestly we couldn't really even afford the mortgage at that point because my wife wasn't making enough. Like we literally were having to borrow money from everybody. My dad gave us 10 grand just to get out of the Mercedes because we couldn't afford that either. But we were very much under on that car. So we had to pay 10 grand to get out of it. So now we're digging ourselves into even more debt. We're using credit cards to pay for food, to pay for gas, to pay for just the essentials. So we're just digging and digging and digging ourselves into a deeper and deeper hole. And like I said, when November, the holiday season rolled around in 2023, it was oh man, it was a really sad holiday season, especially Christmas. So it's like I was still dealing with the whole thing of trying to accept that I might actually have to go back to some warehouse job or some dead end job that I do not want to be at every single day.
Mm.
And because I was refusing that, I was still pushing off getting a job or applying to jobs. And that's what was making my wife really upset. And it was making her parents really upset too. It was making everyone really upset, honestly. But I just kept holding out saying, no, I feel called. I feel like I need to do this. I feel like God wants me to go down this road. And so I was still pushing it off. Finally, January comes around and I start applying to other jobs and other warehouse jobs. And I don't know how many people that are listening to this have just been a part of the job market lately. Like it sucks. Like there's a lot of people that are getting laid off that can't find jobs. And this was the same thing at the beginning of this year too when I was really looking for jobs. Like I applied to Family Dollar, the warehouse here in southern Utah,
Mm.
and they didn't even hire me for like just a warehouse job. I was like, what the hell? I can't work at a warehouse? There, like, I literally got the email saying, sorry, we decided to go in a different route. And I'm like, what in the world? I can't even get a job at a warehouse at Family Dollar for like 15 bucks an hour. Anyways, so
Did
during that,
you, here I
go
have a
ahead.
question.
Yeah.
We can continue with the story after this, but like in all of that, did
hmm
you ever feel like a failure?
there were definitely times where I was struggling with the thought for sure, especially when I was thinking about going back to another dead end job. The idea of failure kept creeping into my mind, and that's where the hardest work that I've done on myself really was coming in, was
Mm.
learning to view myself as more than this job or more than this circumstance.
Yeah.
And so that was really the work. Like I was doing a lot of Dr. Joe Dispenza meditations. I don't know if you're familiar with his work, but I started doing those meditations before it started to get really, really bad. So I started doing those in September. And then, like I said, I lost all my clients in October. And one thing, just fair warning, if anyone starts those meditations because they're looking to make some sort of change in their life, your life is going to get worse. Just fair warning. And he says that very plainly in all of his trainings and all of his books. that when people really start doing the work to really change their view and their perspective of who they are inside of them, everything around them starts to fall apart because it's the universe letting go of everything that's not in alignment with the person that you're trying to become.
Oh, wow.
So just yeah, just a fair warning. And so when I was going into November, I knew all of this, and so in the back of my head, I kept reminding myself, no, this is just making room for something better to come into my life.
Mm.
But it is so incredibly hard to feel abundant when you are very much in lack, especially with your financial situation. When everything around you is like, dude, you're sucking, but you're trying to be like, no, I'm a freaking awesome. When you're trying to feel that inside of you, but everything around you doesn't match that. Oh my gosh, like that, if you can develop that, that is probably, I would say that's like the biggest superpower any of us can really have, is
Mm.
being able to fundamentally believe that we are abundant human beings, even though our circumstances may be saying otherwise.
Yeah. Did going back and getting a job, like in your mind, just kind of
Mm-hmm.
like your subconscious,
Mm-hmm.
like going back and getting a job, did that kind of in your mind like seem like a failure to you? Like,
Oh,
oh
for sure.
crap. Yeah.
For sure. Because I mean, I was up to that point, mine and my wife's life had just been climbing. It's just been going up and up. And we
Yeah.
bought a Mercedes. Everyone was looking at us like, wow, you guys are doing really well, this and that. And then to all of a sudden have to sell the car and then have to go back to the dead end job. And yeah, definitely.
All right, so back to the story. You couldn't even get hired at Family Dollar.
Yes.
What happened after
And
that?
so my wife was also, she had my resume and she likes to control things. So she was applying for, she was
She
on
was
the,
peddling your resume to everybody.
she
Here,
was.
here's a great
Yeah.
guy. Here's a great guy.
No, for real. Like that's how basic she is. Yeah. She was giving my resume out to as many people as she possibly could. She applied for hundreds of jobs for me, Randy. Like I kid you not. She was going at it.
Oh, that's awesome. That is
Yeah.
awesome.
Lindsay, she's amazing. She's incredible. I couldn't ask for a better partner for life. And bless her heart though. I mean, this was a really hard experience for her too, for me to not be working.
Hmm.
And anyway, so yeah, I was getting rejected at Family Dollar. I kept applying to jobs. Ultimately, ended up applying back at my old 9 to 5 that I quit 3 years earlier. And they got back to me a month later, and they're like, "Hey, yeah, we want to hire you." And then it took 3 months, but ultimately, I ended up going back to that old 9 to 5. And you guys, during all of this too, there were so many different opportunities that came across our plate that were like, oh my gosh, this is going to save us. Like, oh my gosh, this is going to be amazing.
Mm.
And I had so many people like say, yeah, let's do something. And then it was just a ghost, or they said, oh, I'm sorry, something came up, can't do it anymore. There was that so many times. And it just goes to prove like we needed it at that time. And it's kind of ironic now because a lot of those same people are coming back into my life saying like, "Hey, let's do something." So it's like, but I don't need it now. And it just goes to show you that like at least just the short experience that I've had with this, when you don't need something to happen is when things really start to happen.
Mm.
So, yeah, people are rejecting me, getting lots of no's, still trying to view myself as more than this experience. End up going back to this 9 to 5. And my mindset going into that was, all right, I'm going to really look at this as an experience and as an experience that is going to push me closer to where it is that I want to go. It doesn't matter how long I'm going to be here. It doesn't matter what it is that I'm doing for work. I'm going to go in here and just try to be of service to everyone that I come in contact with.
Hmm.
Really trying to view this opportunity as getting a job in the first place as more than just a job, but truly like a calling to where I can come in and just do whatever God wants me to do in that scenario.
Yeah.
So every day, that's really what I was truly trying to focus on going into that job. But again, I mean, it's a lot easier said than done.
So looking at all of that experience now, would you say that, somebody told me one time you can never connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backward. And
Hmm.
looking back at all of those painful experiences, all of those failures, would you say that you needed that?
1,000%. Yeah. I definitely needed that experience because obviously, for one, we needed the financial lesson.
Mm-hmm.
We needed to learn how to properly manage our money, and that's what we're starting to do right now. And we have a budget. Like to give you some perspective, we accrued around 16 grand worth of debt over the course of that like 1 year, just living on credit cards. And that's not including our house. But I yeah, we're gonna be paying that off probably within the next 3 or 4 months now, based off of just the different financial decisions that we're making and just the way that we choose to handle our money. And so we're definitely more of a team with that now. So we needed to learn the financial lesson. But for me, at least, and this is kind of where my wife and I have a difference of opinion. Like she, or let me say how kind of I feel, and I'll try to portray a little bit about kind of how she feels to give a little bit of context. And I don't want to speak so much for her because I mean it's her experience. But as far as I'm concerned, I look at that. So you remember how I was saying I was kind of refusing to get a job for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
I was pushing it off because I was scared about what other people would look at me. I was thinking it would be a failure.
Mm-hmm.
So that time I was really doing a lot of meditations, really working on myself. And if I hadn't been doing that stuff, granted, I think I should have been getting a job while doing all of that work on myself, but I was
Mm-hmm.
stupid and I didn't do that. But I think having that experience definitely showed me and gave me the context that I need to be able to make the changes that I want to make in my life now. Like I got a clearer version of who my future self really is and how I can start living as that person in my current reality. And then as far as my wife, sorry, I'll say this and I'll let you go. I noticed you were just about to say something. But she, from her perspective, she hasn't been able to quite look at it from that point of view. And maybe it just takes time. But it is a little bit difficult for me, at least, because it's like I don't understand why somebody would look at this experience as nothing more than a growing and growth opportunity. But anyways, yeah, that's just to give you some context. Sorry, I interrupted you though. You're about to say something.
Maybe we need to have Lindsay on the podcast.
Yeah. No, if you want to, our last podcast episode, we dove deep into all of this, and she
Yeah,
shared all about her opinion too. So,
yeah. I should go back and listen to that. I did see some clips on social media about it, and I
mhm,
was actually going to listen to it before this podcast, but you know how life is right before Christmas. But
life gets busy for sure.
who is this future self you keep talking about? You act like it's a completely different person, Orson.
Yeah, it is a completely different person. I mean, that's the whole point of it. The person I am now is not capable of achieving all the results that I ultimately want to achieve. But that person, first of all, he's driving a Ford Raptor R,
Nice.
or at least he has that in his possession. Um, but a lot way beyond the material things. He's a person that is just in love with life.
Mm,
He knows the future is working out exactly the way that it's supposed to, and he knows as he leads with love every single day and just tries to do his best with what's right in front of him, everything else will fall into place exactly the way that it should. And if another hard challenge comes across his plate, for example, he's going to approach that with love and grace and understand that it's not going to last forever and continue to do his best with what's right in front of him.
yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Would you say at this point that you fear failure or that you avoid failure?
That's a good question. And I've never thought about that before. And to be honest with you, my answer might change further down the road, but as far as like trying to avoid failure, there might honestly be a part of me that is subconsciously trying to still avoid some sort of failure and some sort of heartache
Mm,
like we've been through. Because I mean that sucks. I don't want to have to go through that again.
yeah.
So subconsciously that might be there, but I would like to say I w- embrace it. That's what I would want to say, but I don't think I've been down the road long enough and experienced enough of life's challenges to really say with confidence, yes, I embrace the failure or I embrace the hardships.
Yeah. I mean, the reason I asked that is I was just talking to my wife the other night
Hmm.
about like the way of thinking, the mindset of us like 2 or 3 years ago, 5 years ago, and like where we're at now. I the whole fear of failure for me, I just don't. It's just not. It might still be there, but it's not near as strong as it used to be.
For sure.
Um, because I feel like we've gone through similar things. I don't think that our situations are exactly the same, but we also went through a very tough time financially. And, I'm a man of faith as well, not LDS, but I am a man of faith as well. And I've seen God work in such amazing ways when things get really tight and when, you hit a brick wall and nothing's working for you. And all of a sudden, a miracle happens. Work
Hmm.
appears out of nowhere. Just stuff like that. Um, and so now like I kind of look at the world as my oyster, and it's just kind of like, I mean, I could, if I really set my mind to it, like I could really do anything in life just because I feel like if I really believe it's something that I'm supposed to do and I chase after it, and I really, really try to do my best, like I might never reach that goal, but I'm going to get to a place where I'm supposed to be because I have full faith that God's going to guide me to where I need to go. And anyway, it's just the fear of failure. Just like I'm not trying to brag or say that I've mastered this, or I'm just like,
Yeah.
but it's just not, the power just is not there. And like having conversations with people around me, you talk to them and you explain some of the stuff that you're doing, and they just kind of like, wait, you're doing that without knowing this or that or having this lined up or that lined up. And it's like I I, I just don't. I know that all things are it's going to work out. I just know that. I have faith that it's all going to work out. And I've just seen God work in so many ways in my life that I I don't fear stepping into scary places anymore, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But anyway, um, one more concept that I would like to discuss before we
Please.
wrap up, and that is, do you think the amount of success that a person has is directly tied to the amount of failure that they've experienced?
I would say the people that we look up to, yes.
Like who?
So I mean, a popular one is obviously like Ed Milet, Tony Robbins, and those big names like that. We all know that they've gone through a lot of hardship.
Mm.
Something Justin Prince says, and if you don't know who that is, you can look him up. But one thing he says is the bigger the obstacle, the bigger the success. So
Mm.
the reason why I say the people that we look up to, yes, is because like that whole concept of our future self, the people that have already achieved all the great things that we ultimately want to one day, um, their story is filled with adversity and hardship. But the choice that they made was just to keep going. And that's the kind of person that I want to be like. I think there's definitely people out there that haven't had much challenges that have the kind of success that I maybe want. But I mean, it's probably like those types of people, it's mostly just probably financial success. They might not be fully fulfilled inside, but the people that are fully fulfilled inside of them, doing what they feel called to do, excited to wake up every single morning, it's those people that I believe that have also had the hardships to be able to match those successes, that have taught them the lessons they needed to learn in order to be able to handle the kind of success that they were capable of.
Yeah. I've heard somebody kind of explain that concept as like the price of success. You know, somebody might do something exactly like you in the same area as you, using the same equipment as you, and like they find success a lot quicker and they can sustain it because they've actually paid the price of success
Mm-hmm.
somewhere else. But, you know, I mean, for me, trying to do video production, like I look at a lot of the things that happened there. Ultimately, the business did not end up like I thought it would, and I would consider that somewhat of a failure. Um, but it was so useful for me, and I believe that that was part of the price of success that I had to pay because I learned so much stuff just in I guess in just taking a big old nosedive off a cliff is what it felt like. But it
Yeah.
just taught me so many things. Part of the price of success that I had to pay.
Yeah.
Anyway, somebody explained that concept of like the amount of success that you're going to have is directly tied to the amount of times that you failed. He was talking a little bit about sales in that specific example. And that is, you know, if you look at sales, it's kind of like a numbers game. And so if you actively go out and try to get as many no's as possible, like the amount of yeses that you will get just start to stack up because, you know,
Yeah,
it's a numbers game.
definitely.
Anyway,
I
and
think it's
so
also,
go
oh,
ahead.
you done?
Yeah, yeah.
No. Okay. I was just gonna say, I also think it's super important to remember. You mentioned like you'll see some other people that are in the same field as you, and they're finding a lot of success. The type of success that you would want to see with what you're doing, and that can be also really disheartening too. But
Hmm.
a big lesson that I learned during this hard season of my life is to always measure backwards. Success is just an opinion. It's different for everybody. But when you choose to measure backwards, and what I mean by that is we all have this dream, this version of success that we want to achieve that's far off into the distance or this, right? And the problem with that is those dreams are the ideals for our life. And it's essentially walking through the desert towards a sunset thinking you're going to reach the sunset. Well, you're never going to reach the sunset. You're just going to keep walking through that desert.
Mm,
But when we choose to measure backwards and not measure ourselves against our ideals of where we're trying to go, and we measure backwards, we choose to look at all the success we've already had. So many of us get so caught up in trying to achieve and achieve that we forget, wow, look how far I've come. Look at all these amazing things that I've accomplished already. And then that is just more proof to give yourself to realize, wow, okay, this thing that I'm trying to achieve, just because maybe someone else has achieved it doesn't mean I can either. Or
mm,
just because someone else doesn't mean I can do more than they are. Like I've already done so many amazing things, and I'm sure that person maybe they have some demons or stuff that they're working on too. Maybe the success you think they have isn't all that great for them. And like that just goes to wrap into that whole concept of like you hear enjoy the journey, right? And that's something
mm-hmm,
that is I really struggled with until I really understood what it means to measure backwards is like you're not enjoying the journey because you're always measuring yourself against where you wish you were. But if you
Hmm.
measure yourself against where you've come from, there's never going to be a lack of abundance and success. And switching that too is really, I think, going to help a lot of people. And it's something that I work on a daily basis is to always measure backwards. But I think that's for going to help a lot of people, but also really help me with where I'm trying to go too is reminding myself, wow, I've come so far because looking backwards, there's never a shortage of wins.
Yeah, so good. All right. I think it's about time to wrap up here. But I
Amazing.
do have 6 questions that I ask to everybody.
I love it. I'm excited.
And these are not that serious.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll probably just take it seriously just because.
Okay. Question number 1 is, why do you think Josh Allen is the best quarterback in the world? I'm just kidding.
In the world? Josh Allen.
I'm just kidding.
You
That's not
know,
one of my
you
questions.
said
But
at the
if you
beginning of the podcast, I'm a Chiefs fan. Like, what are you talking about?
look, see, my brother gave me this for my birthday. Put
Oh
this
my God.
little Lego helmet together. Big Bills fan right here.
Hey
Anyway,
guys, who's the best team in the league right now?
um, the Bills, obviously.
Who won the Super Bowl last year?
I don't
Hey,
want to talk
we
about
can go down
that.
this road forever,
I
dude.
don't want to talk about that. Anyway, all right. On to something more important here. Now, question number 1 is, what is your go-to snack/drink combo at a gas station?
Oh man. Drink slash snack. So right now the snack, I would say I really like the chewy, what are they? I think the chewy, they're not Starbursts. What are they called? Oh no.
The high chews.
No. Sweet tarts. Chewy sweet
Oh,
tarts.
yeah.
Those are good.
Those
I've really been liking those ones. And then when it comes to the drink, I don't really get many gas station drinks, but when I do, it's mostly an energy drink. So it would
mm.
be a friend of mine put me onto the Rain gummy worm flavor.
Oh,
So that's
never had
something
it.
I would buy that. Yeah, it's good. Try it.
All right. Question number 2.
Yes,
Would you
sir.
consider Honey Nut Cheerios breakfast soup?
Isn't it basically already breakfast soup if you put milk in it?
You tell me. That's why I'm asking you the question.
When I think about traditional soup, I would say no.
Okay. There's some people ask that question too. I think they think I'm asking like, do you like Honey Nut Cheerios? And it's like, no, 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 no. This is a philosophical question. Do you consider it to be breakfast soup? All right, question number 3. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
I think it does, but I don't ever get it.
Oh, really? Okay.
My go-to is just barbecue chicken, but I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with having like when if it's on there, I will eat it, and I do enjoy a little bit of sweetness on there is good.
Hmm,
I think it does.
very good. Number 4. In your opinion, who is the greatest music artist of all time?
Greatest music artist of all time, Taylor Swift. Just kidding. Total joke.
Dude, I've listened to a couple episodes of your podcast,
Yeah.
and that's what I think is so funny is like you're like Joe Dispenza and self-development, and your
Mm,
wife's over there like the secret lives of Mormon wives and Taylor
mm,
Swift and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, this is such an interesting, there's definitely a lot of dynamic going on between the
yeah.
personalities on that podcast.
Dude, she loves the drama, and then I hate the drama. Like literally Taylor Swift, Mormon wife, like that's she only likes Taylor Swift because she talks about her breakups, which is drama. Anyways.
So you don't have a greatest music artist of all time?
Oh, yes, to answer your question. Greatest music artist. Oh, I probably the first person that comes to my mind is Michael Jackson.
Hmm. Do you enjoy his music or just
I
because
do
he's the
enjoy
king
his
of
music.
pop?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I do enjoy it. It's always never not going to be a classic for me.
gotcha.
Like it never once has not made me like shake my head or anything like that. I always like start dancing to all of his videos.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyways,
All right, number five. What is something that most people don't know about you?
most something that most people don't know about me. Um, I'll say this. I also love to ride dirt bikes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Did you know that?
I did not know that. Do you
Yeah,
have one?
I do have one. Yeah.
Nice, nice. All right, last question here. If you could have dinner with anyone from history, who would it be?
Like the stereotypical answer would be Christ. Um, if I were to have dinner with anybody, who would it be? You know, man, Randy, you said these weren't serious questions. This one like really got me thinking.
Yeah.
Like I'm worried that I could just sit here forever and not come up with an answer. Okay, but I'll say this. Anyone from history, like, does it have to be someone that's already passed away?
No, anybody
Okay,
up to current day.
up to current day. So I can't say my future self.
Well,
Got it. You know,
uh,
I would I would have to say I'd probably say Ed Milet.
would you?
He was he was the first person that really made me realize just after listening to his podcast that I can really do anything I set my mind to.
Mm,
After listening to all of his podcast episodes where he brings on a bunch of different people from different backgrounds, it really made me realize that no matter where you come from, you can achieve whatever it is that you want to.
yeah, yeah. Great choice. I was
Thank you.
just talking with my younger brother about him today, and I was like, if you get a chance, listen to Ed Milet. Like, go to an event, listen to him speak. The man will make you feel things, so many different things. Anyway,
Yes, he will.
great choice. Great choice. Well, here is the an opportunity for you to do as many shameless plugs as you want. You have a
Mhm.
podcast, you have a business, you have social media. Anything you want to plug, go ahead.
We were talking about the our my wife and I's podcast. That one is called the Practically Imperfect Podcast. You can listen to it anywhere you listen to podcasts. Um, if you have a friend with inventory, send them my way, I guess. And then you can follow me at Orson Wilkins. So and that's I'm just documenting all my lessons and stuff that I learned in my own process of creating my own dream life. So that's just what all my content is about.
All right. And I will
Thank you.
link all of that stuff in the show notes so it's
Well,
easy
thank
to
you.
find.
That's super nice of you. And thank you
Yeah.
again for having me on and even thinking about me and the wonderful introduction that you had and asking me all these thoughtful questions. I've always appreciated our conversations, especially ones like this and just the random ones that we have time to time. I consider you to be a good friend and I'm forever grateful that I met you at that fateful workshop in Utah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you know this, but we're actually planning to move there here in a couple weeks.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
That's what I
That
was talking about. It's like
Wow.
Actually, we could end the podcast here. All right. Thanks everybody for watching. Subscribe if you like what you hear. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, all of those things. Remember, go out there, mind your own business.